The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched as far as the eye could see. Floating platforms held representatives from 13 different alien species, each one looking down at the small human delegation below. The air felt heavy with judgment and fear. Captain Hyunwoo stood straight in his blue uniform, even though his hands shook slightly. Behind him, Dr. So-young checked her notes one last time, while Admiral Dongmin watched the alien faces with careful eyes. They had come here thinking this was a normal council meeting. They were wrong. The Veltari speaker, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, raised its voice. Humans of Terra, you stand accused of crimes against galactic peace. Your species has grown too dangerous to remain among civilized worlds. Hyunwoo stepped forward. What crimes? We have followed every law, every treaty. We have helped build colonies and fought beside you against pirates. Your military grows too fast, spoke the Zellian representative, its insect-like features clicking. In 50 years, you have built more warships than most species build in 500. Because we face threats, So-young said, her voice clear and calm. The Outer Rim has dangers that require protection. Your expansion is aggressive, added the Thrakari delegate, its blue scales shimmering. You claim worlds faster than any species in history. Empty worlds, Dongmin said firmly. We terraform dead planets. We make life where there was none. The Veltari speaker raised all 4 arms for silence. Your technology advances too quickly. You refuse to share your jump drive improvements. You develop weapons without council approval. Most dangerous of all, you think differently than civilized species. Hyunwoo felt anger rising in his chest. Different how? You solve problems with violence first. You take risks that endanger others. You do not follow proper procedures. The speaker's voice grew cold. The council has voted. Humanity must leave all territories within council space. You have 1 year. The hall fell silent. So-young dropped her notes. Dongmin's face went pale. Hyunwoo could not believe what he heard. You cannot do this, Hyunwoo said. We have colonies, families, businesses. Millions of humans live in council space. You will take them with you, the speaker replied. Beyond the frontier divide. That region is yours now. The frontier divide? So-young gasped. That's a wasteland. No one can live there. Then you will prove if humans are as adaptable as you claim, the Thrakari delegate said with what might have been a smile. Only one platform remained quiet. The Karathi representative, a being covered in flowing robes, had not voted at all. Its voice was soft when it finally spoke. I abstain from this decision. The Veltari speaker looked annoyed. The vote stands. 12-0 with 1 abstention. Humans must leave within 1 year. Hyunwoo looked around the Great Hall one last time. These beings had been allies, friends, trading partners. Now they stared down at him like he was a dangerous animal. Fine, Hyunwoo said, his voice growing stronger. We will leave your precious council space. But remember this day. Remember that you chose fear over friendship. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. Hyunwoo spent those weeks sending messages to every human colony, every station, every ship in council space. The evacuation would be the largest in galactic history. So-young worked day and night, calling old alien friends, begging for help, for places to store supplies, for ships to carry refugees. Some helped quietly, but most were too afraid of the council. Dongmin studied star charts of the frontier divide. The region was known for radiation storms, dead worlds, and strange space anomalies. No council species had ever tried to settle there. When they reached Earth, the planet was already in chaos. News of the exile had spread everywhere. Some people were angry, wanting to fight the council. Others were terrified, not knowing how they would survive in an empty wasteland. The government worked fast. Every available ship was turned into a transport. Factories began making supplies for the journey. Scientists studied the few maps they had of the frontier divide. Hyunwoo gave a speech that was broadcast to every human world. They think we are too dangerous, too different, too wild to live among them. Maybe they are right. Maybe we are different. But that difference is our strength. We will not just survive in the frontier. We will thrive. The evacuation took 8 months. Long lines of ships carried families, equipment, and everything humans could take with them. Earth's great cities emptied as people said goodbye to the only home they had ever known. Some aliens came to help in secret. The Karathi sent supplies and star charts. A few young Zellians offered to come along but were ordered home by their government. Even some Veltari seemed unhappy with the decision, but they obeyed their leaders. So-Young watched the last transport ships leave Earth's orbit. Millions of humans were now homeless, heading into the unknown. She felt tears on her cheeks, but also something else. Determination. They made a mistake, she told Hyunwoo as they stood on the bridge of the flagship. How do you mean? They think sending us away will solve their problem. But they just gave us freedom to become whatever we want to be. No council laws, no restrictions, no one watching over our shoulders. Dongmin joined them at the window. The frontier divide is dangerous. We might not survive. We're humans, So-Young said with a small smile. Surviving impossible situations is what we do best. The last human ship crossed the frontier divide 3 days later. Behind them lay the civilized galaxy that had rejected them. Ahead lay empty space, dead worlds, and unknown dangers. The council members thought they had solved their human problem. They believed they had sent the dangerous species to die quietly in the wasteland, where no one would ever hear from them again. They were wrong. As the human fleet disappeared into the frontier divide, So-Young made a promise to herself and to every human who had been forced from their homes. They will regret underestimating us. We will show them what humans can really do when we are free to be ourselves. The exile had begun. But for humanity, it was not an ending. It was the first day of something much greater than the Galactic Council could ever imagine. 5 years had passed since the Great Exile, and life in the frontier divide was harder than anyone had imagined. The first human settlements were built on 3 barely livable planets, each one presenting its own deadly challenges. New Haven was too hot during the day and freezing at night. The thin atmosphere made breathing difficult, and dust storms could last for weeks. Governor Insu walked through the main settlement, looking at the prefab buildings that housed 50,000 refugees. The water recyclers were breaking down again and food supplies were running low. We need more ships for supply runs, Insu told his assistant, a young woman named Yoon-hee. The transport from New Seoul is already 2 weeks late. Sir, we got a message this morning. Pirates hit the convoy near the asteroid field. We lost 3 cargo ships. Insu closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Pirates were becoming a bigger problem every month. The council had always kept the space lanes safe. But here in the frontier, humans were on their own. On the planet Refuge, engineer Tae-hyun worked in a laboratory built inside a mountain. The outside air was poisonous, so everyone lived underground. But Tae-hyun was not thinking about the dangers. He was focused on his latest invention. The quantum terraforming device is almost ready, he told his team. If this works, we can change a planet's atmosphere in months instead of centuries. His assistant, Bo Kyung, looked worried. The energy requirements are massive, and if something goes wrong, it could explode and take half the planet with it, Tae-hyun finished with a grin. That's what makes it exciting. The device looked like a large metal sphere covered in glowing crystals. Inside, quantum processors calculated millions of atmospheric equations every second. It was technology that pushed far beyond what humans had ever tried before. Meanwhile, Scout Commander Ye-jin led exploration teams into the deepest parts of the frontier divide. Her ship, the Pioneer, had just finished scanning its 20th dead solar system when something appeared on the sensors. Commander, you need to see this, said her pilot Sang-woo. We're picking up artificial signals from the 4th planet. Ye-jin studied the readings. The planet was covered in ice with no atmosphere to speak of. But the signals were definitely artificial. Take us in for a closer look. As they approached the planet, they saw structures on the surface. Not buildings exactly, but geometric shapes that were clearly made by intelligent beings. The signals were coming from underground. Should we report this to command? Asked Sang-woo. Not yet, Ye-jin said. Let's find out what we're dealing with first. They landed near the largest structure and put on protective suits. The surface was covered in ice that might have been there for thousands of years. But when they reached the geometric shape, they found it was made of some kind of metal that their scanners could not identify. Underground, they discovered tunnels that went deep into the planet. The walls were covered in symbols that looked like writing, but in no language any human had ever seen. At the center of the complex, they found something amazing. It was a chamber filled with floating crystals that glowed with soft blue light. In the middle stood what looked like a control panel, though it was clearly designed for beings very different from humans. Commander, Sang-woo whispered, I think we found something left by an extinct alien race. Ye-jin was already taking pictures and scanning everything. This changes everything. We need to get word back to the colonies immediately. While the scouts were making their discovery, another important meeting was taking place in space. A small fleet of unusual ships had approached the human settlement on New Haven. The ships were long and sleek, with solar panels that looked like wings. The lead ship requested permission to land, and Governor Insu decided to meet with them personally. When the airlock opened, he saw his first non-human visitors since the exile. They called themselves Zephyrians. They looked almost human, but taller and thinner, with pale skin and large eyes. Their leader introduced herself as Captain Nara. "We heard about your exile from the council," she said. "We wanted to meet the species that was brave enough to anger the Veltari." "Brave or stupid," Insu replied. "We're still deciding which." Nara smiled. "We were exiled too, 300 years ago. The council said we were too independent, too willing to trade with forbidden species." "Where have you been living?" "Everywhere and nowhere. We became nomads, traveling from system to system, but we heard humans might be different. We hoped we could help each other." The Zephyrians had knowledge that humans desperately needed. They knew which systems had useful resources, which space routes were safe, and most importantly, they knew about other exiled species scattered throughout the galaxy. "There are others like us?" Insu asked. "Many others. The council has been exiling difficult species for thousands of years. Most die alone in the darkness, but you humans, you might be strong enough to bring us all together." Back on refuge, Tae-hyun was ready to test his terraforming device. The target was a small moon with no atmosphere at all. If the device worked, it would create breathable air in just a few hours. "All teams stand by," Tae-hyun announced over the radio. "Beginning quantum terraforming sequence." The device began to glow brighter and brighter. Energy readings went off the charts as quantum processors reshaped matter at the molecular level. Everyone held their breath. Then something wonderful happened. The moon's surface began to change. Ice melted into water. Rocks released trapped gases, and complex chemical reactions created the beginnings of an atmosphere. "It's working," Bo-kyung shouted. "The atmospheric readings are climbing fast." Within 6 hours, the dead moon had a thin but breathable atmosphere. Plants could be introduced within weeks. Animals within months. What had taken nature millions of years, humans had accomplished in less than a day. News of the terraforming success spread quickly through all the human colonies. For the first time since the exile, people began to feel hope. They were not just surviving in the frontier divide. They were learning to change it, to make it their own. Yejin's discovery of the alien ruins was even more exciting. Teams of scientists arrived to study the strange technology. The floating crystals seemed to store vast amounts of information, though no one could figure out how to access it yet. Dr. So-young, now serving as the head of colonial science, arrived to see the ruins personally. She stood in the chamber with the glowing crystals, feeling like she was in the presence of something ancient and powerful. "Who were they?" she asked the lead archaeologist. "We don't know yet, but they were advanced beyond anything we've seen. This technology might be older than the Galactic Council itself." As the 5th year of exile ended, humanity was no longer the desperate refugee species that had fled council space. They were becoming something new. The harsh environment of the frontier divide was forcing them to innovate, to take risks, to push beyond the limits of what they thought was possible. The Zephyrian alliance brought new hope and new possibilities. The terraforming breakthrough meant that dead worlds could become garden worlds, and the alien ruins suggested that humans were not the first to be exiled to this region. Most importantly, the exile was teaching humans to work together in ways they never had before. Without the Council's rules and restrictions, without the safety net of established civilization, every human colony had to depend on the others for survival. They were becoming stronger, more united and more innovative than they had ever been under Council rule. The beings who had exiled them thought they were sending humans to die in the wilderness. Instead, they had given humanity exactly what it needed to become something greater than anyone had ever imagined. 10 years after the exile, Dr. Boram stood before the most important discovery in human history. The alien ruins that Scout Commander Yejin had found were finally giving up their secrets, and what they revealed would change everything. Boram had spent 3 years learning to read the strange symbols carved into the walls. The language belonged to a species that called themselves the Architects. They had built this complex 50,000 years ago, long before the Galactic Council even existed. "The translation is complete," Boram announced to the research team gathered in the crystal chamber. "I know who the Architects were and what happened to them. Dr. So Young, now much older but still sharp, leaned forward in her chair. Tell us everything. The architects were the first species to achieve galactic civilization. They built cities on thousands of worlds and created technology that we can barely understand even now, but they were not alone in the galaxy. Boram activated a holographic display that showed star maps and historical records. The images came from the crystal storage devices, which contained the entire history of the architects. They encountered many younger species as they expanded. Some were peaceful, others were aggressive. The architects tried to create a council to bring everyone together in peace. Like the Galactic Council? Asked Tae-hyun, who had come to see the presentation. Exactly like the Galactic Council. In fact, the Galactic Council is built on architect ruins. The Veltari found their capital city and claimed it as their own. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The beings who had exiled humanity were living in someone else's home, pretending to be the founders of galactic civilization. But there's more, Boram continued. The Architects' Council failed for the same reason ours might fail. Some species became jealous of the Architects' success. They formed an alliance and declared war. The holographic display showed images of massive space battles, burning worlds, and entire star systems being destroyed. The war had lasted for thousands of years. The architects were winning until something terrible happened. Their enemies created a biological weapon that targeted their species specifically. Within a century, every architect was dead. So Young wiped tears from her eyes. Genocide. Yes, but before they died, the architects hid their most important technology in places like this. They hoped that someday, a species worthy of their legacy would find it and use it wisely. Tae-hyun studied the holographic star map. Do you think they meant us? I think they meant anyone who was strong enough to survive exile and smart enough to find these ruins, Boram replied. The location of this complex was not random. It was placed in a region where only desperate species would ever look. Meanwhile, Admiral Dong-min was dealing with more immediate concerns. The human fleet had grown significantly over 10 years, but it was still small compared to the Galactic Council's military. However, reports from his intelligence network suggested that something was changing in Council space. Captain Ji-hoon, Dong-min's best intelligence officer, had just returned from a secret mission to the inner worlds. His report was both encouraging and worrying. Several Council species are becoming unhappy with Veltari leadership, Ji-hoon explained. The Thrakari lost a colony to pirates last month. When they asked for help, the Veltari said they were too busy with more important matters. What matters? Building new warships and monitoring the frontier divide. They're watching us, sir. Long-range sensors, scout ships that disappear when we get close. They know we're not dead. Dong-min was not surprised. How long before they decide we're a threat? Hard to say. But some of the younger Council species are asking questions about the exile. The Zellians especially. Their new generation doesn't remember the war stories that made everyone fear humans. While the military prepared for possible conflict, diplomat Wu Jin was working on a different approach. The Zephyrians had introduced humans to other exiled species, and Wu Jin was building something that had never existed before. An alliance of the forgotten. His current meeting was with representatives of the Karathi, a species exiled for excessive curiosity about forbidden technologies. They looked like tall insects with crystalline shells that changed color based on their emotions. Your terraforming technology is impressive. The Karathi leader buzzed, its shell shifting to bright green. We have mining techniques that could help you extract resources from dead worlds. What do you want in return? Wu Jin asked. Protection. The Council has been sending extermination fleets to eliminate exile colonies. We lost 3 settlements last year. This was news to Wu Jin. They're killing exiles? Quietly. Officially, we die from natural causes or pirate attacks. But we know the truth. The meeting confirmed what many had suspected. The Galactic Council did not just exile dangerous species. They eventually eliminated them entirely. Humanity's growing success in the frontier divide was probably making them nervous. Back at the architect ruins, Boram's team had made another breakthrough. They had activated one of the crystal storage devices and discovered detailed technical specifications for technologies far beyond anything humans had ever imagined. This is a quantum manufacturing system, explained engineer Minho, who had joined the research team. It can build anything we can design using pure energy to create matter. How is that possible? So Young asked. The architects understood the universe in ways we don't. They could manipulate space and time at the quantum level. With this technology, we could build a fleet of ships in weeks instead of years. But the most important discovery was yet to come. Deep in the computer core, Boram found a message that the architects had left specifically for whoever found their ruins. The message activated automatically when Boram approached the central crystal. A holographic figure appeared, tall and graceful, with features that seemed almost human but not quite. If you are seeing this message, our civilization is gone, the figure said in perfect human language. We have programmed this system to learn your language and customs from your own records. Everyone in the chamber stopped what they were doing to listen. We built this vault not just to preserve our technology, but to help the next generation of exiles. Every few thousand years, the galactic powers repeat the same pattern. They grow comfortable, then fearful, then violent toward anyone who threatens their dominance. The figure gestured, and star maps appeared around the chamber. We have placed similar vaults throughout the galaxy. Some have been found and used. Others wait for the right species to discover them. You humans show promise. You survive where others die. You adapt where others fail. You unite where others fragment. Boram felt chills running down her spine as the message continued. But survival is not enough. If you want to ensure the future of your species and others like you must become strong enough to change the galaxy's power structure. Our technology can help you do this. The holographic figure pointed to one of the star maps, which showed the location of other architect vaults. Gather the exiles. Build an alliance. Use our knowledge to become what the galaxy needs, a force for justice instead of oppression. The tools are here. The choice is yours. The message ended, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. Everyone understood that they had just witnessed something that would change the course of galactic history. So Young was the first to speak. We need to contact all human colonies immediately, and our Zephyrian allies. This changes everything. What do we do first? Asked Taehyun. Boram looked at the crystal storage devices that contained 50,000 years of advanced knowledge. We learn, we build, and we prepare to show the galaxy what exiled species can accomplish when they work together. Outside the ruins, space remained empty and quiet. But across the frontier divide on dozens of human worlds, people were about to discover that their exile was not punishment. It was preparation for something far greater than anyone had ever imagined. The architects had given them the tools. Now humanity would decide what to build with them. 15 years after the exile, the frontier divide was no longer a wasteland. It had become the heart of something the galaxy had never seen before, an empire built by the forgotten and discarded. Chancellor Hyunwoo stood on the observation deck of Exodus Station, watching construction ships add another ring to the massive space habitat. The station was already home to 2 million beings from dozens of different species, all united by one thing. They had been cast out by the Galactic Council. The latest reports from the outer colonies. Sir, said his aide, bringing him a data pad. Hyunwoo scanned the numbers with satisfaction. 67 star systems now flew the banner of the Frontier Alliance. Terraforming operations had made 30 dead worlds into garden planets. The quantum manufacturing centers were producing technology that surpassed anything in Council space. But most importantly, the Alliance was growing every day. Word was spreading throughout the galaxy that the exiles had found a new home, and more refugees arrived each week. On the military shipyards orbiting New Seoul, Fleet Admiral Ji-hoon watched the completion of humanity's newest warship. The vessel was 3 times larger than anything humans had built before the exile, and its hull was made from materials that the architects had designed 50,000 years ago. Status report, Ji-hoon requested from the lead engineer. All systems operational. Sir, replied Chief Engineer Minho. The quantum shields are at full power. The phase cannons are calibrated, and the jump drive can move us across the galaxy in hours instead of days. Ji-hoon smiled. The ship looked beautiful and deadly at the same time. Its design combined human innovation with architect technology and improvements suggested by their alien allies. It was a perfect symbol of what the Frontier Alliance represented. How many ships like this do we have now? He asked. This is the 100th vessel in the new fleet, sir. We're launching 2 more each week. The numbers were impressive, but Ji-hoon knew they needed to be. Intelligence reports from Council space were becoming more troubling each month. In her office deep within Exodus Station, Intelligence Director Yunji studied the latest spy reports. The news was both good and bad. Her best agent, codenamed Starling, had sent a message from the Veltari homeworld. The Council was deeply divided about what to do about the Frontier Alliance. Some species wanted to negotiate, others wanted to attack immediately. The younger races are asking difficult questions, the message read. They want to know why the Council exiled the humans, why they refused to trade with the Alliance, why they are building military forces instead of seeking peace. But there was also dangerous news. The Veltari leadership was planning something called Operation Clean Slate. Details were limited, but it seemed to involve eliminating all exile colonies permanently. Yunji sent a priority message to Chancellor Hyunwoo and Admiral Ji-hoon. The Alliance needed to be ready for war. Meanwhile, on the research station orbiting the Architect ruins, Dr. Boram and her team had made another breakthrough. They had successfully activated an Architect quantum communication device. "The signal is reaching across the galaxy," announced her assistant, Dr. Sung-ho. "We're getting responses from 17 different locations. Other Architect vaults? Yes, and some of them are inhabited. It looks like several exile communities have found and activated their own ruins. The communications revealed that the Frontier Alliance was not alone. The Calathans, exiled 400 years ago for unnatural genetic modifications, had built a thriving civilization around Architect technology in the galactic south. The Nethys, banished for dangerous philosophical ideas, controlled resource-rich systems in the Outer Rim. Most exciting of all, some Council species were secretly communicating with exile communities. Young Zellians, Thrakari colony worlds, and even some Veltari dissidents were questioning their leaders' policies. We're not just building an alliance of exiles, Boram realized. We're building a new kind of galactic civilization. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Jae-won was negotiating with a surprising visitor. A Thrakari prince named Velka had arrived in secret, claiming to represent reform-minded members of his species. "My people are tired of Veltari dominance," the prince explained, his blue scales dark with emotion. "We joined the Council for mutual protection, not to become servants of an ancient empire." "What does your faction want?" Jae-won asked. "Recognition that the exile policy was wrong, trading rights with Alliance worlds. Most importantly, protection from Veltari retaliation when we openly support you." It was a tempting offer, but Jae-won knew it was also dangerous. If the Alliance openly supported rebellion within Council space, it would certainly trigger a war. "I'll present your proposal to the Chancellor," he promised. "But understand that we cannot make promises about protection. We're still building our strength." While diplomats negotiated and spies gathered intelligence, ordinary citizens of the Alliance were creating something remarkable. On New Haven, human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian artists to design cities that were both beautiful and functional. Karathi miners shared advanced extraction techniques with human workers. Governor In-soo, now overseeing civilian development for the entire Alliance, watched children of a dozen different species playing together in a park. Human children with pale skin played hide-and-seek with young Zephyrians who could change color like chameleons. Karathi larvae climbed on playground equipment designed for their crystalline shells. "This is what the galaxy could be," he told his assistant, Yoonhee. "Different species working together, learning from each other, building something better than any of us could create alone." But the peaceful moment was interrupted by an emergency alert. Long-range sensors had detected a fleet of ships approaching the outer edge of Alliance space. The vessels did not respond to communication attempts and were moving in attack formation. Admiral Ji-hoon received the alert while inspecting the new fleet. Within minutes, he was aboard his flagship, ordering all available ships to defensive positions. "How many ships are we facing?" he asked his tactical officer. 60 vessels, sir. They appear to be Council military ships, but they're flying no identification signals. Pirates using stolen ships? Unlikely. The formation is too precise, and they're heading directly for our main shipping lanes. Ji-hoon realized this was probably the beginning of Operation Clean Slate. The Council had decided to test Alliance defenses with a deniable attack that could be blamed on pirates or rogue elements. The battle lasted only 4 hours, but it changed everything. The attacking fleet was completely destroyed, with Alliance forces suffering minimal damage. More importantly, Captured officers revealed that they were indeed Council military forces operating under secret orders. Chancellor Hyun Woo called an emergency session of the Alliance Council. Representatives from all member species gathered in the Great Hall of Exodus Station to hear his speech. For 15 years, we have built our civilization in peace, Hyun Woo began. We have welcomed refugees, shared technology, and created prosperity for all our peoples. But today the Galactic Council has chosen war. He displayed images of the destroyed attacking fleet and recordings of captured officers admitting their orders. They hope to destroy our trade routes and blame it on pirates. They wanted to weaken us slowly, secretly, until we were vulnerable to a larger attack. But they have made a mistake. They have underestimated what we have become. The hall erupted in angry voices from dozens of different species. Everyone understood that the time for hiding was over. We have a choice, Hyunwoo continued. We can wait for them to attack us again, growing stronger each time until they finally overwhelm us. Or we can show the galaxy who we really are. The vote was unanimous. The Frontier Alliance would reveal itself to the galaxy, not as desperate refugees begging for acceptance, but as a new power demanding respect. Admiral Ji-hoon began preparing the largest fleet in galactic history. Engineer Min-ho started construction of weapons that would demonstrate Alliance technological superiority. Diplomat Jae-won sent secret messages to reform factions within Council space. Most importantly, Dr. Boram activated the quantum communication network, sending a message to every architect vault in the galaxy. The time had come for all exile communities to unite. On the far side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council continued their normal business, unaware that their secret attack had failed. They still believed the Alliance was a minor problem that could be solved with careful military pressure. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. The exiled and forgotten were ready to remind the galaxy that survival could make one stronger, that necessity could drive innovation beyond all previous limits, and that unity among the desperate could create power that no established empire could match. The foundation was complete. Now it was time to build the future. 20 years after the exile, the galaxy was about to learn a truth that would shatter everything they thought they knew. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, emergency sessions had been running for 3 days straight. Reports were flooding in that made no sense to anyone. The Veltari High Commander, Thexvor, stood before a holographic display showing impossible readings. These numbers cannot be correct, he insisted to his intelligence officers. No exile colony could build fleets of this size. Sir, we have confirmed the reports from multiple sources, replied his aide nervously. Our deep space monitors detected over 3,000 ships moving in coordinated formations across 17 different sectors. 3,000? Thexvor's forearms gestured in disbelief. The entire Council fleet has only 1,500 ships. These readings must be sensor errors, but they were not errors. At that very moment, Grand Admiral Mi-young stood on the bridge of the flagship Destiny, watching the largest military operation in galactic history unfold before her eyes. All fleets report ready, Admiral, announced her communications officer. Mi-young looked at the tactical display showing Alliance forces positioned throughout the galaxy. 500 ships near the Council's trade hub at Zentari Prime. 400 more surrounding the Veltari Military Academy at Kethis. Another 600 approaching the industrial worlds of the Thrakari sector. This is Grand Admiral Mi-young to all fleet commanders. She broadcast on a frequency that reached every ship in the Alliance. Operation Revelation begins now. Remember, we are not here to conquer. We are here to reveal truth. On the bridge of every Alliance ship, crews representing dozens of different species worked together with efficiency that Council forces had never achieved. Human tactical officers coordinated with Saphirian navigators. Karathi engineers maintained systems alongside Calithan weapons specialists. The first Council world to encounter Alliance forces was Zentari Prime, a major trading hub with 40 million inhabitants. The planet's orbital defenses detected incoming ships and immediately sent out warnings. Unknown vessels, you are entering restricted Council space, broadcast the defense commander. Identify yourselves immediately or face destruction. The reply came from Captain Huan Su, commanding the lead Alliance squadron. This is the Frontier Alliance vessel Freedom's Dawn. We come in peace, but we come prepared for war. Lower your weapons and prepare to receive a diplomatic transmission. Alliance? The defense commander sputtered. What alliance? There are no significant powers beyond Council space. Instead of answering with words, Captain Huansu activated his ship's quantum shielding system. The Alliance vessels suddenly appeared 10 times larger on sensors as their true capabilities became visible. Weapons that could crack planets, shields that could stop stars, and propulsion systems that defied known physics. The defense commander stared at his screens in shock. Each Alliance ship was more powerful than anything in the Council fleet, and there were 500 of them surrounding his planet. I need to contact the Council immediately, he stammered. Please do, Captain Huansu replied. But first you will receive a message that your people deserve to hear. Across the galaxy, the same scene was playing out on dozens of worlds. Alliance fleets appeared without warning, demonstrated overwhelming technological superiority, and then did something no one expected. They began broadcasting the truth. On every Alliance ship, Ambassador Jaewon's voice carried a message that reached billions of beings throughout Council space. The transmission was accompanied by holographic records from the Architect ruins, showing the real history of galactic civilization. Citizens of the galaxy, Jaewon's voice began. You have been told that the Galactic Council represents the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the known universe. This is a lie. The broadcast showed images of Architect cities, technologies, and historical records. It revealed that the Veltari had built their empire on the ruins of a far greater civilization that they had helped destroy. The species you know as the founding races are not founders at all. They are inheritors who claimed credit for achievements that were not their own, and for thousands of years they have exiled or eliminated any species that might challenge their false authority. On the Council worlds, billions of beings watched in stunned silence as evidence poured forth. Lists of exiled species, records of genocides, proof of systematic oppression disguised as law and order. 20 years ago, humanity was exiled for being too dangerous, too innovative, too unwilling to accept limitations. Today we return not as conquerors but as liberators. We offer every species in the galaxy a choice. Continue to live under the rule of liars and murderers or join us in building something better. The reaction was immediate and explosive. On Thrakari worlds, young citizens took to the streets demanding answers from their leaders. Zelian colonies declared independence from Council authority. Even on some Veltari worlds, dissidents began openly questioning their government's actions. In the Council chambers, chaos reigned. Species representatives demanded explanations for crimes they had never known about. Some called for immediate negotiations with the Alliance. Others demanded total war. High Commander Thexvor was shouting over the noise. This is propaganda, lies designed to turn us against each other. But Councillor Velka of the Thrakari stood up, his blue scales bright with anger. Are you saying our own historical records are lies? Because I have just received confirmation from our archives. Every crime they list is documented in our own files. The Zelian representative clicked her mandibles in agreement. My species records show the same patterns. How many others have you hidden from us? Within hours, 6 Council species had withdrawn from the emergency session. 3 more were demanding investigations into historical records. The 1,000-year alliance that had ruled the galaxy was falling apart. On Exodus Station, Chancellor Hyunwoo watched the reports with mixed emotions. The revelation was working exactly as planned, but he took no pleasure in the chaos spreading across Council worlds. Sir, we're receiving requests for negotiations from 12 different species, reported his communications officer. What about the Veltari? They're mobilizing their fleet for a massive counterattack. Our intelligence suggests they plan to destroy Exodus Station and execute Alliance leadership publicly. Hyunwoo was not surprised. The Veltari had too much to lose to accept peaceful change. They would fight to preserve their power even if it meant destroying the galaxy. Send a message to Grand Admiral Myung, he ordered. Tell her to prepare for the final phase. Myung received the message while her fleet held position around the Veltari homeworld. The planet's defenses were impressive, but they were designed to fight enemies using Council technology. They had no answer for Alliance weapons based on Architect science. Admiral, the Veltari Grand Fleet is approaching our position, reported her tactical officer. 800 ships, including their largest dreadnoughts. Let them come, Myung replied calmly. It's time they learned what 20 years of innovation can accomplish. The Veltari Grand Fleet had never suffered a major defeat in over 1,000 years of warfare. Their dreadnoughts were the size of small cities, armed with weapons that could sterilize planets. As they approached the Alliance fleet, their commanders were confident that superior numbers would overcome any technological advantages. They were wrong. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. Alliance ships moved with impossible speed, their quantum shields deflecting every attack while their phase cannons tore through Veltari hulls like paper. When the firing stopped, 600 Veltari ships were destroyed or disabled. The Alliance fleet had suffered no casualties. But the most shocking moment came when the remaining Veltari ships tried to retreat. Alliance vessels simply appeared around them, having jumped through space in ways that violated every law of physics the Council understood. Veltari vessels. "This is Grand Admiral Mi Young," she broadcast to the surviving ships. "Your fleet is surrounded. Surrender now and your crews will be treated honorably. Continue fighting and we will demonstrate weapons that will make this battle look like a minor skirmish." The Veltari fleet commander, faced with technology he could not comprehend and firepower he could not match, did something no Veltari had done in 1,000 years. He surrendered. News of the Veltari defeat spread across the galaxy within hours. The species that had dominated galactic politics for millennia had been crushed by exiles they thought were dead or dying in the wilderness. On world after world, species that had lived under Council rule for generations began declaring independence. The Frontier Alliance was no longer a rebel movement. It had become the dominant power in the galaxy. But Emperor Hyunwoo, as he was now being called, understood that military victory was only the beginning. The real challenge would be building a galactic civilization that was actually better than what came before. "We have shown them our strength," he told his advisors during an emergency council meeting. "Now we must show them our wisdom. The galaxy is watching to see if we can rule better than those we replaced." Outside Exodus Station, construction ships began building new rings and sections. The station would need to be expanded to house representatives from hundreds of worlds.